We had a report of suspicious activity. Can you explain why you are here?
I'm taking the train back to base, officer. Here is my identification.
All right, face the car. Place your hands on the trunk now. Any resistance will result in further charges, understood?
The horse's hooves struck pavement like gunshots. Not loud at first, just a rhythm, growing faster, closer, wrong. Judge Naomi Carter felt it before she saw it. The vibration climbed up her calves, rattled her bones, made the air feel thin. She stood near the edge of the protest line, cardboard sign lowered at her side, watching a line of mounted officers push forward. The sun burned white overhead. Sweat slid down her spine beneath a plain black t-shirt. No robe, no badge, just another black woman in a crowd that already felt disposable. "Move back!" someone barked through a loudspeaker. The crowd hesitated. Phones rose. A chant faltered. Then the horse surged. Naomi barely had time to turn before a shoulder slammed into her chest. The sign flew. Her heel skidded. She fell hard, palms scraping asphalt, breath knocked clean out of her. The horse reared, massive and panicked, and an officer yanked the reins too late. "Get out of the way." The officer snapped, voice flat, irritated, not apologetic. Naomi lay stunned, ears ringing, the smell of sweat and leather filling her nose. Around her, people froze. No one stepped forward. No one shouted her name. The silence was worse than the impact. She pushed herself up, shaking, and looked straight at the officer towering above her. "You just assaulted me," she said, voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. The officer laughed once, short and dismissive. "You people always say that." Something in Naomi's chest went cold. She reached into her bag, not for her phone, but for the one thing she never carried to protest. And when she spoke again, the crowd stopped breathing. "I'm Federal Judge Naomi Carter." The horse stamped. Sirens wailed somewhere far away. The officer's smile vanished. Marcus Hill stood at attention outside Union Station, summer heat pressing through his dress uniform. The bronze buttons caught the sun, small mirrors flashing with every breath he took. He had reported for reserve paperwork at the nearby federal building. A routine stop before flying back to Virginia. The uniform usually brought nods, quiet respect, sometimes a thank you. Today it drew stares that lingered too long. A police cruiser rolled past, slowed, then stopped. "Hey, soldier," a voice called. "You waiting on someone?" Marcus turned, calm practice. "No, sir, just standing here." Officer Derek Sloan stepped out, hand already resting near his belt. His partner stayed inside, window cracked, eyes hidden by sunglasses. "You can't loiter here," Sloan said. "I'm not loitering. I'm on official leave," Marcus replied, keeping his tone even. Sloan looked him up and down. "That uniform looks clean for someone riding buses." Marcus felt the words land, sharp and familiar. "Is there a problem, officer?" Sloan's mouth twitched. "Problem is people pretending to be what they're not." Pedestrians slowed. Phones lifted. Marcus noticed a woman clutch her bag tighter. A man glance away. "I can show ID," Marcus said. "Do it," Sloan snapped. "Slow." Marcus reached inside his jacket, fingers careful. The world narrowed to fabric and breath. "Hands out where I can see them," Sloan barked, louder now. "They are," Marcus said. "Please." Sloan grabbed his wrist, twisting. Pain flared. "What's your rank?" Sloan asked. "Major," Marcus said through clenched teeth. Sloan laughed. "Sure you are." The cuffs came out, metal flashing. The crowd murmured. "This is unnecessary," Marcus said, heart pounding. "Resisting already?" Sloan said, pushing him toward the cruiser. Marcus caught his reflection in the window. Uniform creased, dignity cracking. Across the street, an electronic billboard flickered to a news crawl about military leadership in Washington. As Sloan forced his head down, Marcus felt something colder than fear settle in. This wasn't about a misunderstanding. It was about being seen. The door slammed. Inside the cruiser, air thick and stale, Marcus stared at his bound hands and wondered how far this would go. The holding area smelled like disinfectant and old sweat, a sterile attempt at control layered over years of neglect. Marcus sat on a steel bench bolted to the floor, his wrists still cuffed in front of him, the chain biting into the skin whenever he shifted. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, a dull, constant sound that crawled under his thoughts. A young officer stopped in front of bars, chewing gum. "Name?" "Marcus Hill." Marcus said, "Major, United States Army." The officer didn't look up from the clipboard. "Date of birth." Marcus gave it. The pen scratched. No reaction. "I'd like to make a phone call," Marcus added. "You'll get one," the officer said, already turning away. "When it's your turn." Time slowed the way it did in places designed to remind you that it belonged to someone else. Across the room, a middle-aged black man in a wrinkled work shirt leaned back against the wall, arms folded. "First time?" he asked quietly. Marcus glanced at him. "In a place like this?" The man nodded, a humorless smile tugging at his mouth. "Uniform didn't save you, huh?" "No," Marcus said. "It didn't." The man exhaled. "It never does." A metal door opened. Officer Sloan's voice drifted in, confident, relaxed. "Yeah, he got mouthy. Claimed he was some big deal. I'll write it up." Marcus felt his jaw tighten. The man beside him shook his head. "They always do. Write it up however they need." Marcus leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Did I break any law?" The man looked at him for a long moment. "That's not really the question in here." A desk sergeant finally approached, older, heavier, eyes tired. "Hill," he said. "Stand up." Marcus rose. "You're being booked for disorderly conduct and resisting," the sergeant said, voice flat. "That's false," Marcus replied. "I complied with every instruction." The sergeant met his gaze, then looked away. "You can argue it later." "I want to call my commanding officer," Marcus said. "Now." The sergeant hesitated. "Just a fraction. You'll get your call after processing." Marcus swallowed frustration. In combat, uncertainty had been a threat you could plan for. This was different. This was silence as a weapon. They took his belt, his watch, his phone, each item placed in a plastic bin like evidence of a life temporarily revoked. As they led him past another cell, a young white man laughed softly. "Man, you really thought that costume would work." Marcus stopped, looked at him. The guard nudged Marcus forward. "Keep moving." Inside the cell, the door clanged shut with finality. The sound echoed in his chest. Minutes blurred into something shapeless. The fluorescent lights never dimmed. Somewhere, a radio crackled with laughter. Somewhere else, a toilet flushed. Marcus closed his eyes, breathing slow, counting like he had been trained. For in, for hold, for out. He thought of his mother, how she used to straighten his tie before ceremonies, fingers careful, proud. He thought of the oath he had taken, words about defending a nation that now felt distant, abstract. A guard finally stopped in front of his cell. "You got your call," she said, holding out a phone through the bars. Marcus took it, hands unsteady. He dialed a number he knew by heart. Ring, ring, voicemail. He tried another, then another. Nothing. He lowered the phone. "I need to reach the Pentagon," he said quietly. The guard raised an eyebrow. "Sure you do. I'm serious," Marcus said. "This is a mistake." She shrugged. "Tell it to your lawyer." The phone was taken. The moment passed. Hours later, or maybe it was less. Time had lost meaning. The desk sergeant returned with a folder. "You're being held pending review," he said. "Review by who?" Marcus asked. "Prosecutor," the sergeant said. "Could be tonight. Could be tomorrow." "For what?" Marcus pressed. The sergeant sighed. "Look, man, this is bigger than me. Just sit tight. Sit tight." Marcus stared at the bars after he left. Sit tight had been said to him in war zones, in briefing rooms, in moments before orders changed lives. It had never felt this empty. The man from earlier cleared his throat. "You military?" he asked again. "Yes." "You fight overseas?" "Yes." He nodded slowly. Funny, they send you out to protect something they won't give you in here. Marcus didn't answer. A television mounted high in the corner flickered to life. Local news. A familiar building filled the screen. Union Station. An altercation earlier today involving police and a man claiming to be military, the anchor said. Authorities say the individual became uncooperative. Marcus watched his own blurred image. Hands cuffed, head lowered. The cheering read, investigation ongoing. Man, the other detainee whispered. That's you. Marcus felt heat rise behind his eyes. Not tears. Something harder. Anger held in check by years of discipline. Officer Sloan appeared on the screen, giving a statement. My priority is public safety, Sloan said. We can't let anyone intimidate officers by wearing a uniform. Marcus closed his eyes. The man beside him shook his head. They already decided. Footsteps approached again. A lieutenant this time, crisp uniform, sharp eyes. He stopped at Marcus's cell. Hill, he said, you say you're Army? Yes, sir. What unit? Marcus gave it. The lieutenant's expression didn't change, but something shifted. He stepped back, spoke quietly to the sergeant. What's going on? Marcus asked. The lieutenant looked at him for a long second. Stay right here, he said, then walked away quickly. The door at the far end opened and closed. Voices rose and dropped. Marcus stood alone in the center of the cell, the hum of the lights louder than ever. For the first time since the cuffs went on, he felt it clearly. Not fear, not anger, but the weight of what this moment could become. Not just for him, but for every silent space like this. Whatever happened next, the system had already spoken, and it wasn't done yet. The conference room on the 5th floor of the Pentagon had no windows, only screens. They glowed with maps and schedules and quiet authority, the kind that didn't need to announce itself. Marcus had sat in rooms like this before, briefings that decided deployments, meetings that reshaped entire commands. Today, his name sat on the table without him. Colonel Rebecca Lawson folded her hands. We need to be precise, she said. This is a civilian arrest. Across from her, a civilian aide scrolled on a tablet. It's already trending, he said. Clips everywhere. He's in uniform. The optics are bad. Optics aren't the issue, Lawson replied. The issue is whether we intervene. A pause followed, heavy with things unsaid. In a holding cell miles away, Marcus presses back to the cool concrete and listened to the building breathe. Somewhere above him, an air vent rattled. Somewhere beyond the walls, decisions were being made that would touch his life without asking permission. A guard stopped at the bars. You got another call, she said, softer than before. Marcus took the phone. This time the line picked up immediately. Marcus, a familiar voice said, It's Rebecca. He exhaled. Thank you for calling. Are you hurt? She asked. No, he said. Not physically. There was a pause. I've seen the footage. And Marcus asked, And it's ugly, she said, but we have to move carefully. Marcus closed his eyes. Carefully for who? For the institution, she said, then corrected herself. For everyone. Silence stretched between them. They charged me with disorderly conduct, Marcus said. Rebecca, I didn't do anything. I know, she said quickly. I know you didn't. Then why am I still here? Another pause. Because if we step in too hard, it becomes a jurisdictional fight, she said. And because some people think staying quiet will make it go away. Marcus laughed once, short and humorless. It never goes away. No, she agreed. It doesn't. He leaned his head against the bars. If this were one of my soldiers overseas, detained without cause, stripped of dignity, we'd call it what it is. What's that? She asked. Abuse of power, Marcus said, and silence would make us complicit. On the other end, papers rustled. There's another complication, she said. Marcus straightened. What kind? Your appointment, she said carefully. It hasn't been publicly announced yet. Marcus felt the familiar weight settle in his chest. So they want to protect the rollout. They want to protect the office, she said. Some are suggesting we wait. Let local authorities handle it. Wait how long? Marcus asked. Until it resolves itself. He shook his head. That's not neutral. That's choosing a side. I know, she said, and I'm pushing back. The line went quiet. A guard coughed nearby. Marcus, Rebecca said finally, if we intervene now, they'll say you used your position. I didn't use anything, he said. I stood still. I know, she said again, but perception is already set, Marcus interrupted. They saw a black man in uniform and decided it was a threat. Rebecca sighed. I'm calling a meeting, she said. I can't promise outcomes, but I won't let this disappear. Thank you, Marcus said. That's all I ask. The call ended. The phone was taken. The cell felt smaller than before. Across the room, the man in the wrinkled shirt watched him. That sound important, he said quietly. Marcus nodded. It shouldn't have to be. Hours passed. A public defender stopped by, young, earnest, overwhelmed. They're offering release pending review, she said. No admission of wrongdoing. Charges stay for now. So I walk out guilty, Marcus said. You walk out, she replied. That's the leverage. He considered it. Freedom with a stain, or confinement with principles. I'll take the release, he said. She nodded, relief clear. We'll fight the charges. As paperwork moved, Marcus caught a glimpse of another television. A panel of commentators debated his arrest without using his name. Respect for law enforcement has to go both ways, one said. Another countered. If he really is military, this is embarrassing. Marcus watched, detached. He had learned long ago how to observe systems without expecting them to see him. When the cuffs came off, his wrists throbbed, pale lines marking where metal had been. A lieutenant escorted him to the exit. You're free to go, the lieutenant said. For now, Marcus repeated. Outside, night had fallen. The city hummed, indifferent. Cameras waited behind barricades. Questions flew. Major Hill, did you resist arrest? Was this racially motivated? Are you using your rank to escape charges? Marcus stopped. The lieutenant hesitated. I won't comment, Marcus said calmly. Not tonight. He walked past them, uniform rumpled, spine straight. In the car waiting for him, Rebecca Lawson sat in the passenger seat. She looked tired. They're scared, she said as he climbed in. Not of you, of what this represents. Marcus stared out the window as the city slid by. It represents the truth, he said, and the truth doesn't need permission. She nodded. Tomorrow, she said, everything changes. Marcus didn't answer. He watched the lights blur and wondered what tomorrow would cost, and who would be asked to pay it. Morning broke the way it always did in Washington. Quietly, insistently, sunlight slipping between buildings as if nothing had happened. Marcus sat at the small kitchen table in his temporary apartment, a mug of coffee cooling untouched beside him. His uniform hung over the back of the chair, sleeves creased where cuffs had pressed too long. The television murmured. Questions surrounding a controversial arrest involving a man in military dress. The anchor said. Authorities maintained the stop was lawful. Marcus watched without blinking. The footage played again, his own body camless image captured by strangers. A shaky phone shot from across the plaza. The moment Sloane's hand reached for the cuffs. The angle that made Marcus look larger, closer, more threatening than he had felt. A split screen followed. Officer Derek Sloane stood at a podium, face calm, voice rehearsed. We treat everyone the same, Sloane said. Uniforms don't grant immunity. Marcus set the mug down harder than intended. Coffee sloshed, dark against white porcelain. His phone buzzed, then buzzed again. Messages stacked, unknown numbers, old colleagues, family. He didn't answer any of them. Instead, he muted the device and stood, pacing the narrow room. The knock came just after 9. Rebecca Lawson stepped inside, legal folders tucked under her arm. She took one look at Marcus's face and said, It's everywhere. I know, Marcus said. They're already rewriting it. Rebecca set the folders down. The department released the incident report. Marcus laughed softly. Already? She slid a page across the table. Disorderly conduct. Failure to comply. Officer safety concerns. Marcus read the words. Each sentence a careful construction. They make it sound like I was aggressive. That's the point, Rebecca said. They're building a narrative. Outside, a siren wailed, then faded. The city kept moving. They also released partial body cam, she added. Marcus looked up. Partial. She nodded. From Sloane's partner. Starts after the cuffs are on. Marcus closed his eyes, so the context disappears. Yes. The television shifted to a panel discussion. For faces in neat boxes debated tone and law. We don't know the full story, one said. Police make tough calls, another added. A third leaned forward. But if this man truly is an officer, the optics. Rebecca turned the volume down. The mayor's office wants a statement from you. Marcus leaned against the counter. No, they're worried about escalation, she said. I'm worried about the truth, Marcus replied. Those aren't the same thing. His phone buzzed again, this time with a familiar name. He hesitated, then answered. Mom, he said. Her voice came through tight, controlled. I saw it. I know, Marcus said gently. Are you okay? She asked. I'm standing, he said. That counts for something. She exhaled. They put your face on television like that, she said. Like you're a suspect. I was, Marcus said. Silence followed. Then, quietly, your father would be furious. Marcus swallowed. He taught me to keep my head. He also taught you when to raise it, she said. After the call ended, Marcus stood still for a long moment. Phone pressed his palm like an anchor. By midday, the story had shifted again. Hashtags bloomed and split, arguments calcifying into sides. Support mixed with skepticism. Praise tangled with doubt. A reporter waited downstairs despite instructions. Major Hill, she called as he passed the lobby. Did you resist arrest? Marcus stopped. Rebecca stiffened beside him. No, Marcus said simply. Are you claiming racial profiling? The reporter pressed. I'm describing what happened, Marcus replied. People can decide what to call it. Will you sue the department? Another voice shouted. Marcus met the cameras. Eyes steady. This isn't about money, he said. It's about accountability. He walked on. The questions followed like shadows. Inside the car, Rebecca let out a breath. That line will be quoted, she said. Good, Marcus replied. Let them quote it. At the Pentagon, a smaller room buzzed with urgency. Screens showed social feeds, headlines, drafts of statements never sent. We should emphasize cooperation, one official said. We should emphasize restraint, said another. And what about truth? Rebecca asked. They looked at her, then away. Back at the apartment, Marcus sat alone as evening settled. He scrolled once through the footage, once, and stopped. The comments blurred together. A knock sounded again. This time it was the public defender. The prosecutor's office wants a delay, she said. They're waiting to see how this plays. How this plays, Marcus echoed. They think public interest will die down, she added. Marcus stood. It won't. She hesitated. Why are you so sure? He gestured to the screen, to the endless replay. Because this isn't new, he said. It's just visible. Night fell fully. The city lights came on like constellations, distant and cold. Marcus stepped onto the balcony. Somewhere below, people laughed. A bus hissed to a stop. Life uninterrupted. His phone rang again. An unlisted number. Marcus Hill, he answered. Major. A man said, voice measured, this is Deputy Secretary Alvarez. Marcus straightened. Sir, we need to talk, Alvarez said. Privately. When? Marcus asked. Tonight, Alvarez replied. This can't wait. Marcus looked back at the glowing television through the glass, at his own image frozen mid-frame. I'll be there, he said. The line went dead. As Marcus grabbed his jacket, he felt the shift, subtle but unmistakable. The story had moved beyond the street, beyond the station. The public record had been written. What came next would decide who controlled it. The conference room downtown smelled faintly of burnt coffee and printer toner. The scent of urgency masked as professionalism. Marcus sat at one end of the polished table, hands folded, posture straight. Across from him, city attorneys shuffled papers with careful indifference. A representative from the police department, Deputy Chief Harold Vance, kept his gaze trained on a legal pad, pen tapping in slow, deliberate beats. "This is an internal review," Vance said, finally looking up. "We appreciate your cooperation." Marcus met his eyes. "I didn't come here to cooperate," he said evenly. "I came for clarity." A murmur passed between the attorneys. Rebecca Lawson, seated beside Marcus, leaned forward. "Let's be precise," she said. "What exactly is being reviewed?" Vance cleared his throat. "Officer conduct, procedural compliance, and systemic context?" Rebecca asked. Vance's jaw tightened. "We don't speculate." Marcus let the silence stretch. "You don't speculate," he said. "You document." Vance's pen stopped tapping. A city attorney interjected. "Major Hill, no one here is accusing you of wrongdoing." Marcus turned to him. "Your report does." The attorney adjusted his glasses. "Reports are preliminary." "So is injustice," Marcus replied. The meeting adjourned without resolution. Promises were made, timelines, transparency, follow-ups. None were written in ink. Outside, reporters waited again. This time Marcus didn't stop. Back at the Pentagon, the response was quieter, heavier. Senior staff filled a long table, faces drawn tight with calculation. Screens displayed polling data and projected headlines. "We need to protect institutional credibility," one official said. "At whose expense?" Marcus asked. A pause. "We're saying," another voice added carefully, "that timing matters." Marcus leaned back, folding his arms. "Timing always matters when someone wants to delay." Rebecca spoke before the room could answer. "Delay is a decision," she said. "It favors the status quo." The room absorbed that. Later, alone in his office, Marcus stared at a framed photo on his desk. Himself years earlier, younger, smiling beside a unit he had led through a brutal winter overseas. They had trusted him with their lives. He wondered how many of them were watching now, wondering what faith still meant. His phone rang. A private number. "Major Hill," the voice said. "This is internal affairs." Marcus closed his eyes. "I was expecting your call." "We'd like a formal statement," the investigator said. "Recorded." "When?" Marcus asked. "Tonight." "Good." Marcus said. "I'm done waiting." The interview room was small and bare. A camera blinked red. The investigator, a woman with tired eyes and clipped speech, nodded once. "Start from the beginning," she said. Marcus did. He spoke slowly, deliberately, choosing word the way he had learned to choose routes, aware that one wrong turn could cost lives. He described the stop, the language, the hands, the cuffs. "Did you resist?" she asked. "No," Marcus said. "I resisted disappearing." She paused, pen hovering. "That's not a legal term." "It's a lived one," Marcus replied. She didn't argue. When it ended, Marcus felt drained, not from the telling, but from the knowledge that truth alone was never enough. Outside, night had settled in thick and humid. As Marcus walked his car, his phone vibrated with an alert. Officer Sloan placed on administrative leave pending investigation. He read it twice, then a third time. Rebecca called moments later. "It's a start," she said. "It's containment," Marcus replied. "They're isolating the symptom." "Symptoms matter," she said. "They create pressure." "And pressure can burst pipes," Marcus said. "Yes," Rebecca agreed. "Or reinforce them." At home, Marcus watched another press conference. The police chief spoke of accountability and patience, words polished smooth by repetition. "We ask the public to trust the process," the chief said. Marcus muted the television. He sat in the dark, the city's glow outlining the window frame. His wrists still ached if he thought about them too long. Sleep came in fragments, broken by echoes of metal and voices. Near dawn, he rose and dressed quietly, choosing civilian clothes this time. As he stepped outside, a neighbor nodded politely, eyes flicking away too quickly. At the Pentagon later that morning, a sealed envelope waited on his desk. Inside, a single-page memo. Effective immediately, pending public announcement. Marcus read it carefully. The words carried weight. Authority formalized. Power acknowledged in ink rather than assumption. He folded the page and set it down. In another part of the city, Derek Sloan sat in his living room, uniform jacket draped over a chair like a forgotten skin. The news played on low volume. Administrative leave. Sloan scoffed. They'll clear it, he muttered to no one. His phone buzzed. A message from a colleague. He's not just some major. Sloan frowned. What do you mean? The reply came slower this time. Check DC briefings. Quiet channels. Sloan turned the volume up as a breaking news banner slid across the screen. Sources indicate the man arrested may hold a senior leadership role within the Department of Defense. Sloan's face drained of color. Back at the Pentagon, Marcus stood at a window overlooking the river. The city stretched wide beneath him. Rebecca joined him, silent. They're circling, she said. They always do, Marcus replied. She studied his face. Are you ready for what comes next? Marcus thought of the cell, the cameras, the voices debating his humanity like policy. No, he said honestly, but I'm done being surprised. Outside, helicopters cut across the sky, rotors chopping the morning air. The system had begun to respond, not with justice yet, but with movement. And movement, Marcus knew, was a moment when power revealed its true shape. The room was sealed before Marcus arrived. 2 security officers checked his badge without comment, their movement precise, almost reverent. Inside, the lights were dimmer than usual, the air cooler, as if the building itself understood the gravity of what was about to be said. A long table stretched beneath muted screens. At one end sat Deputy Secretary Alvarez. At the other, faces Marcus recognized from years of briefings, some military, some civilian, all careful. Major Hill, Alvarez said, "Thank you for coming on short notice." Marcus took the seat offered. "I was told this couldn't wait." "It can't," Alvarez replied. He glanced around the room, then nodded to a communications director who pressed a button. The doors locked with a soft, unmistakable click. Silence settled. Alvarez folded his hands. "We're past containment," he said. "The media has sources. Quiet ones. They're asking the right questions." Marcus leaned back. "So the waiting is over." For some, Alvarez said, "Yes." A screen flickered to life. Headlines scrolled, blurred but legible enough to read between the lines. Unidentified military leader. Pentagon appointment under wraps. The appointment was scheduled for public announcement next week. Alvarez continued. Confirmation hearings complete. Oath administered privately. Marcus felt the room tilt, not from surprise, but from inevitability. He had known this moment would come, just not like this. "We are prepared to confirm," Alvarez said, "that you are the incoming chief of the Pentagon." The words landed with a dull weight. Around the table, reactions varied. Tight nods, measured breaths, eyes that avoided his. Power, once named, changed the temperature. "And the arrest?" Marcus asked. Alvarez exhaled. "That's the problem." Across the city, Derek Sloan sat in his car outside the precinct. Phone pressed to his ear. The radio murmured in the background, voices overlapping in speculation. "You hear it?" a colleague said. "They're saying he's—" "Stop," Sloan snapped. "That's not real." "Man," the voice said carefully, "you should turn on the news." Sloan did. The anchor's tone was different now, less cautious, more charged. Multiple sources confirming the arrested individual is a senior Pentagon official, with an announcement expected imminently. Sloan's grip tightened on the steering wheel. His mind raced back to the plaza. The uniform, the calm, the eyes that never dropped. "Shit," he whispered. Back in the sealed room, a general cleared his throat. "If we go public now," he said, "we escalate." Marcus looked at him. "Escalate what?" "Conflict," the general replied. "With local law enforcement, with the mayor, with unions." Rebecca Lawson, seated beside Marcus, spoke calmly. "Oh, we clarify. Conflict exists whether you name it or not." Alvarez nodded. "We're not here to debate the moral reality," he said. "We're here to decide sequencing." Marcus leaned forward. "This isn't a rollout issue," he said. "It's accountability." A civilian advisor interjected. "Sir, with respect, once your role is confirmed, the narrative shifts. The department will say the officer didn't know, that it was an unfortunate mistake." Marcus met her gaze. "Ignorance isn't neutral," he said. "It's selective." Silence followed. "We can't undo the arrest," Alvarez said, "but we can decide what happens next." Marcus considered the faces around him. "You can decide," he said. "I can speak." Rebecca turned slightly toward him. "Are you sure?" He nodded. "They've already spoken for me." Across town, Sloan walked into the precinct, eyes darting. Conversation stopped when he passed. A lieutenant pulled him aside. "You need to sit down," the lieutenant said. Sloan scoffed. "What now?" "Now," the lieutenant said. "Internal Affairs wants you again. And—" he hesitated. "This is bigger than you thought." Sloan laughed hollow. He lied. The lieutenant didn't return the smile. He didn't. Sloan's phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. A link. He opened it. A memo. Official. Sealed. Incoming Chief of the Pentagon, Marcus D. Hill. The room seemed to close in. Sloan's breath shortened. "No," he said aloud. "No, no, no." Back at the Pentagon, Marcus stood at a podium in a smaller briefing room. Cameras off for now. A communications officer adjusted microphones. "We'll announce your appointment," she said. "Then take questions. We recommend you avoid." "I won't," Marcus said. "Avoid." She swallowed and stepped back. The doors opened. Cameras flooded the room. Lights flared. Alvarez stepped forward first. "Today," he said, "we confirm the appointment of Marcus Hill as Chief of the Pentagon, effective immediately." A murmur rippled through the press. Marcus took the podium. The room quieted. "I was arrested this week," Marcus said plainly. "In uniform. In public. Without cause." Cameras clicked. "I am not speaking as an exception," he continued. "I am speaking as evidence." Questions erupted. "Did the officer know who you were? Are you calling for charges? Is this racial profiling?" Marcus raised a hand. The room stilled. "Who I am," he said, "should never determine whether I am treated with dignity. What happened to me happens every day to people without my visibility." The words hung heavy. Outside the precinct, Sloan watched the press conference on a mounted screen, jaw clenched. Every sentence felt like a tightening vice. A reporter asked, "What should happen to the officer involved?" Marcus answered carefully. "The system should do what it claims to do," he said. "Investigate honestly, hold accountable fairly, and change." Sloan turned away from the screen, stomach churning. Back in the briefing room, Rebecca leaned close. "Once this lands," she said softly, "there's no going back." Marcus nodded. "There never was." As the conference ended, messages poured in: support, outrage, fear. The city buzzed, alive with reaction. In the quiet hallway beyond the cameras, Marcus paused, hand on the cool wall. The reveal had happened, not as triumph, not as revenge, but as collision. Power had been named. Now it would be tested. The fallout didn't arrive all at once. It came in waves. Marcus felt the first one before dawn, standing in the quiet hallway outside his office as aides hurried past with tablets and coffee cups. The building carried a different energy now, sharper, electric. His name moved through rooms ahead of him, changing conversations before he entered them. A notification buzzed on his phone. Officer Derek Sloan formally suspended without pay. Prosecutor to review charges. Marcus read it once. Then again. He slipped the phone back into his pocket, without expression. Rebecca Lawson caught up to him near the elevators. "They're calling an emergency city council session," she said. "Police union already issued a statement." "Let me guess," Marcus said. "Political pressure. Due process. One bad apple." Rebecca nodded. All of the above. They stepped into the elevator. The doors closed with a muted thud. I don't want this framed as personal, Marcus said quietly. If it becomes about me versus him, they'll miss everything. Rebecca studied his reflection in the steel wall. They won't miss it, she said. They'll avoid it. The doors opened onto a floor crowded with reporters. Questions flew immediately. Chief Hill, do you believe the officer was racist? Should he face criminal charges? Is this a turning point for policing? Marcus raised a hand. The room settled. I believe systems reveal themselves under pressure, he said, and this one did. By mid-morning, Derek Sloan sat alone in his living room, blinds drawn, uniform jacket folded on the couch like a relic. His phone lay face down on the table. He hadn't answered in hours. On the television, a former prosecutor spoke with grave certainty. Ignorance of someone's status isn't a defense, she said, but selective suspicion can be motive. Sloan muttered, I didn't know. He replayed the moment again. The uniform, the calm refusal to bow. The way it had irritated him more than shouting ever could. His phone buzzed. A message from the union rep. Do not speak to anyone. We're evaluating options. Another buzz. A text from his sister. What did you do? Sloan didn't respond. Across town, Marcus sat in a closed-door meeting with city officials. The mayor's chief of staff spoke carefully, hands clasped. We're committed to transparency, she said, but we also need to manage unrest. Unrest doesn't come from truth, Marcus replied. It comes from delay. A council member shifted in his seat. Are you suggesting federal oversight? Marcus didn't flinch. I'm suggesting accountability that doesn't depend on rank. The room went still. Outside, protests gathered, small at first, then growing. Signs rose. Chants echoed off concrete. Not riots. Witnesses. That evening, Marcus stood on a balcony overlooking the city. Sirens wove through the air like threads. He felt the ache in his shoulders. The familiar call to command. Settle in. Rebecca joined him. They've scheduled Sloan's hearing, she said. Internal affairs. Criminal review pending. And the department? Marcus asked. Defensive, she said, but fractured. Marcus nodded. Fractures let light in. Down below, a chant drifted upward, steady and measured. Say his name. Marcus closed his eyes briefly, not in pride, but in recognition. He had not asked for this role, but it found him anyway. The next day, Sloan walked into the Internal Affairs office flanked by his attorney. Cameras flashed outside, hungry. Inside, the air felt thin. An investigator slid a folder across the table. We're going to review your statements, she said, line by line. Sloan leaned back, jaw tight. I followed procedure. Procedure, she replied, or pattern? Sloan bristled. I felt threatened. The investigator looked up. By what? He hesitated. Images collided, uniform, skin, silence. By uncertainty, he said finally. She wrote something down. Uncertainty isn't probable cause. Hours later, the hearing adjourned. Sloan left without speaking, shoulders hunched against the weight of eyes. That night, Marcus sat alone in his office long after staff had gone. The building hummed softly around him. On his desk lay letters, some supportive, some furious, some pleading. One envelope stood out, handwritten. He opened it carefully. I saw what happened. It read, I'm a sergeant. I've been quiet too long. Thank you for not being. Marcus folded the letter and placed it in a drawer. His phone rang. Rebecca, they're filing charges, she said. Officially. Marcus exhaled slowly. Good. Are you okay? She asked. He considered the question. I'm functioning, he said. That's not the same thing. Silence stretched between them. You don't have to carry all of this, she said. Marcus looked out at the city lights. Leadership doesn't ask permission, he said. It asks endurance. In another part of the city, Sloan packed a box under his lawyer's watchful eye. Badge, photos, commendations that now felt ironic. You'll fight it, the lawyer said. This isn't over. Sloan nodded, Hollow. He caught his reflection in a darkened window and barely recognized himself. Outside, protesters held candles. One sign read, "Uniforms don't equal innocence." Back at the Pentagon, Marcus prepared remarks for a public address. He wrote and rewrote a single line until it felt true. Justice isn't about who falls. It's about what stands afterward. When he finally left the building, dawn was breaking again. Another day, another reckoning. The consequences had begun. Not as spectacle, not as revenge, but as pressure applied where silence had lived too long. And Marcus knew the hardest part was still ahead. The hearing room was larger than Marcus expected, paneled and pale wood that reflected the overhead lights without warmth. Rows of seats filled quickly. City officials, journalists, union representatives, and people who had taken off work to watch a process they had been told to trust. Cameras lined the back wall, red lights blinking like quiet warnings. Marcus sat at the witness table, hands folded, spine straight. The microphone in front of him felt heavier than it looked. "Please state your name for the record," the chairwoman said. "Marcus David Hill," he replied, "Chief of the Pentagon." A murmur rippled through the room, a reminder that titles still carried weight even when justice resisted them. "Chief Hill," the chairwoman continued, "you're here to provide testimony regarding the arrest on—" "I'm here to describe what happened," Marcus said calmly, "and what it represents." She nodded once. "Proceed." Marcus took a breath. He didn't rush. He had learned that speed often benefited those with something to hide. "I was standing outside Union Station," he began, "in uniform, waiting, not obstructing anyone, not speaking." He described the approach, the language, the hand near the holster. He quoted only one line, "You people love costumes," and then let it go, unwilling to give it more oxygen than it deserved. "What did you feel in that moment?" a council member asked. Marcus looked up. "Calculation," he said. "The kind you learn when your safety depends on how little you move." A union attorney leaned forward. "Chief Hill, isn't it true that officers must make split-second decisions?" "Yes," Marcus replied. "And those decisions are informed by patterns, training, assumptions." The attorney smiled thinly. "Are you suggesting Officer Sloan targeted you because of your race?" "I'm suggesting," Marcus said, voice steady, "that race shaped the interpretation of my presence." The room fell quiet. A council member cleared her throat. What would have changed the outcome? "Recognition of humanity," Marcus said, "before authority." Questions continued, some earnest, some defensive. Marcus answered each with restraint, refusing to speculate where facts sufficed. In the audience, Rebecca watched his shoulders rise and fall, the discipline holding him upright even as the weight pressed down. She recognized the signs of strain, the careful pauses, the way his hands tightened when questions circled too close to home. A reporter was allowed a question. "Chief Hill," she asked, "do you believe your status influenced the response after the arrest?" Marcus considered it. "Visibility accelerates action," he said. "It doesn't create justice. It exposes its absence." Applause broke out before the chairwoman struck the gavel. "Order," she said. "This is not a rally." Outside the chamber, Derek Sloan sat in a smaller room, watching the testimony on a screen. His attorney whispered strategy, but Sloan barely heard him. Every sentence felt like a spotlight swinging closer. "That's not how it happened," Sloan muttered. The investigator glanced at him. "Then you'll have a chance to explain." When Sloan was called, the room shifted again. He took the seat Marcus had vacated, posture rigid, jaw set. "Officer Sloan," the chairwoman said, "describe your interaction with Mr. Hill." Sloan spoke of procedure, of uncertainty, a perceived threat. "What specifically constituted the threat?" a council member asked. Sloan hesitated, his refusal to comply. "With what instruction?" she pressed. "To—" Sloan stopped. "To move along." "Is standing still illegal?" she asked. "No," Sloan admitted. "So the threat was—" She waited. Sloan swallowed. "The situation." A low murmur passed through the room. "Officer," the chairwoman said evenly, "did you consider the possibility that your perception was influenced by bias?" Sloan bristled. I don't see color. Marcus, seated again at the table, felt a familiar ache settle behind his eyes. He did not react. The chairwoman sighed softly. That statement, she said, is not the defense you think it is. Sloan's attorney intervened, redirecting. The tension thickened. Outside, protesters held signs in steady lines. Candles flickered in daylight. Names were written in marker and memory. Back inside, the hearing stretched on. Testimony layered over testimony, each revealing a piece of a structure built long before any of them entered the room. When it ended, the chairwoman spoke once more. This body will deliberate, she said. Findings will be issued. As the room emptied, Marcus remained seated for a moment, hands resting on the table. The wood was cool beneath his palms. Rebecca approached quietly. You did what you could, she said. Marcus nodded. So did he? He said. In his own way. She searched his face. That doesn't sound like anger. It's not, Marcus replied. It's clarity. Outside, reporters surged again. Questions flew. Do you feel vindicated? Is this justice? What should happen next? Marcus answered one. Justice, he said, isn't a moment. It's a practice. He walked away. That evening, alone in his office, Marcus replayed the day not in images, but in sensations, the hum of lights, the weight of the microphone, the silence after certain answers. He loosened his tie and leaned back, eyes closed. His phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. Thank you for saying what we couldn't. He didn't reply. He didn't need to. Across the city, Sloan sat in his car, hands gripping the wheel, staring at nothing. The world he understood had shifted, and he could no longer pretend it hadn't. As night fell, Marcus stood by the window once more, watching the city breathe. The testimony had ended, but its echo lingered. Truth had been spoken aloud. Now it would have to live. The findings were released on a Wednesday afternoon, buried between budget hearings and weather alerts. No dramatic announcement. No single moment of reckoning. Just a document. 32 pages of language that tried, imperfectly, to tell the truth. Marcus read it alone in his office. Use of authority exceeded reasonable bounds. Failure to articulate lawful cause. Evidence of implicit bias influencing decision-making. He set the report down and leaned back, staring at the ceiling. The words were careful, restrained. They did not shout. They did not apologize. But they were there, on record, permanent. His phone buzzed. Rebecca, they upheld the suspension, she said. Termination recommended. Prosecutor moving forward. Marcus closed his eyes. Good. That's all you're going to say? She asked gently. It's enough, he replied. Across the city, Derek Sloan stood in a cramped office with neutral walls and a single flag in the corner. An internal affairs captain slid a letter across the desk. This is the department's decision, the captain said. You have the right to appeal. Sloan stared at the page. Terminated. Pending charges. Recommended decertification. This is because of who he is, Sloan said hoarsely. The captain shook his head. This is because of what you did. Sloan laughed once, hollow. He ruined my life. No, the captain replied. He survived yours. Outside, Sloan walked into daylight, without a badge the first time in 15 years. The city didn't notice. A bus roared past. Someone argued into a phone. Life moved on, indifferent to his fall. Back at the Pentagon, Marcus prepared for his first full public address as chief. The speech sat open on his desk, marked with edits. He had cut references to himself, to the arrest, to the spectacle. What remained was quieter and harder. Rebecca watched from the doorway. They expect inspiration, she said. Marcus nodded. They'll get responsibility. The auditorium filled slowly. Uniforms, suits, civilians, cameras waiting but not invited to dominate. Marcus stepped to the podium. I want to be clear, he began. Accountability is not punishment for its own sake. It's correction. The room was silent. What happened to me wasn't extraordinary, he continued. What happened after was, he spoke of systems, how they resisted change, how they absorbed pressure, how they often protected comfort over justice. He spoke of service that didn't end at rank and dignity that didn't depend on recognition. When institutions fail, he said, they don't collapse all at once. They erode. And erosion looks normal until it doesn't. Applause followed, restrained but real. That night, Marcus returned home later than usual. He loosened his tie, set his keys down, and stood in the quiet of the apartment. The adrenaline had faded. What remained was exhaustion. He sat on the edge of the couch, elbows on his knees, and let himself feel it. The weight he had carried without complaint, the vigilance that never fully switched off, the cost of being visible. His phone chimed. A message from his mother. I'm proud of you, not because you're powerful, because you stayed whole. Marcus stared at the words for a long moment before replying. I learned that from you. In another part of the city, a community center hosted a small forum. People spoke, teachers, veterans, students. The arrest came up, but only briefly. The conversation moved outward, deeper. We can't wait for someone important to be hurt, a woman said. That shouldn't be the trigger. A young man nodded. But it helps when someone doesn't look away. Marcus didn't attend. He didn't need to be there. The point was never presence. It was momentum. Weeks passed. The headlines faded. New crises took their place. But policies shifted quietly. Training language changed. Oversight committees gained teeth. Small things. Structural things. Not miracles. One evening, Marcus stood again outside Union Station. Not in uniform this time. Just a man in a dark coat, hands in his pockets. People passed him without pause. He watched the doors slide open and close, the rhythm steady. He felt the memories stir, metal cuffs, cameras, silence, but it no longer defined the space. It was part of it, one layer among many. A young soldier walked past, uniform crisp, eyes scanning instinctively. Marcus caught his gaze and nodded once. The soldier nodded back. That was it. No ceremony, no recognition, just understanding. Marcus turned away and walked into the city, carrying with him the knowledge that justice had not arrived fully formed, but it had moved. And movement, once begun, did not easily stop. The system had not been redeemed, but it had been exposed. And that, Marcus knew, was where real change always started. The first quiet morning came months later. Marcus noticed it because nothing demanded him immediately. No briefing lights blinking. No phone vibrating with urgency. Just sunlight slipping through the tall windows of his office, landing on the edge of the desk like it had permission to be there. He sat still for a moment, hands folded, listening to the building breathe. Power, he had learned, did not announce itself when it arrived. It settled. It lingered. It waited to see what kind of man would hold it. A knock sounded. Come in, Marcus said. An aide stepped inside. Young. Nervous. Sir, the revised oversight framework is ready for final sign-off. Marcus nodded. Leave it here. When the door closed again, he opened the folder. The language was dense, careful, unglamorous. New reporting requirements. Independent review triggers. Mandatory cross-agency notification for civilian military incidents. Not justice as spectacle. Justice as architecture. He signed his name at the bottom, pen moving steadily, and felt something quiet loosen in his chest. Later that afternoon, Marcus stood before a smaller group. Cadets from a joint leadership program, their faces alert, curious. They had asked him to speak not about policy, but about command. A young woman raised her hand. Sir, she said, how do you lead when the system fails? Marcus considered her question longer than protocol required. You tell the truth, he said finally, even when it costs you comfort. Especially then. Another cadet asked, did you ever think about walking away? Marcus didn't answer right away. Yes, he said honestly, more than once. The room leaned in. But I learned something, he continued. Walking away doesn't make the weight disappear. It just hands it to someone else, usually someone with less protection. The cadets nodded, absorbing the cost beneath the words. That evening, Marcus drove without an escort for the first time since the arrest. The city blurred past, familiar and changed all at once. At a red light, he caught his reflection in the windshield. Older than before, eyes carrying a knowledge he hadn't chosen but now owned. At home, he cooked a simple meal and ate standing at the counter. Ordinary acts felt newly deliberate, like proof of continuity. His phone buzzed with a message from Rebecca. They closed the final appeal. "It's done." Marcus stared at the screen. "Thank you," he typed back. A moment later, another message followed. "How are you really?" He set the phone down without answering. Instead, he stepped out onto the balcony. The night air was cool, forgiving. Somewhere below, laughter drifted upward. A couple argued softly. A city living its contradictions out loud. Marcus rested his hands on the railing and let the memories surface. Not just the arrest, but everything after. The hearings, the testimony, the way strangers had projected their hopes and anger onto him like a screen. He had carried it because someone had to, but carrying was not the same as healing. Weeks later, Marcus sat in a therapist's office for the first time in his life. He hadn't announced it, hadn't framed it as leadership development or resilience training. He just showed up. "What brings you here?" the therapist asked. Marcus smiled faintly. "I'm tired of pretending nothing changed." She nodded. "That's usually where we start." The sessions were quiet, uneventful, harder than any public confrontation. He spoke about vigilance, about calculation, about how silence could be louder than impact. He spoke about the moment in the cruiser, when he realized that survival and dignity were sometimes forced to negotiate. And he learned, slowly, that strength didn't disappear when it softened. It clarified. One Saturday morning, Marcus returned to Union Station again, this time not alone. His mother walked beside him, arm linked with his. "You don't have to prove anything here," she said gently. "I know," Marcus replied. "I just wanted to stand without watching my hands." They stood for a moment in the open space. People flowing around them. No cameras. No sirens. No threat. His mother squeezed his arm. "Your father would have liked this version of you," she said. Marcus swallowed. "I hope so." Across the city, policies continued to shift quietly. Oversight reports landed on desks. Training modules changed tone. Resistance persisted, but so did pressure. Not everything improved, but something had been interrupted. One afternoon, Marcus received a letter forwarded from a precinct he'd never visited. Inside was a short note, handwritten. "I stopped someone today and heard your voice in my head. I slowed down. Thank you." Marcus folded the letter and placed it in the same drawer as the first one. They accumulated there not trophies, not proof, but reminders. On the anniversary of the arrest, a journalist requested an interview. "People want to know," she said, "if it was worth it." Marcus considered declining. Then he agreed. When the question came, he didn't answer right away. "Worth it suggests a transaction," he said finally. "What happened to me was an exchange. It was a reveal." "A reveal of what?" she asked. "Of how fragile dignity is," Marcus said, "and how durable truth can be when someone refuses to drop it." The interview aired briefly, then passed. Another story in a crowded cycle. That night, Marcus walked a long way home. He passed murals. Candle stubs melted into sidewalks. Names faded but not erased. He stopped once, watching a group of teenagers joke loudly on a corner, unbothered, alive. This was what remained. Not vindication. Not revenge. But space. Space to breathe. Space to speak. Space where silence no longer automatically won. Marcus reached his building and paused before going inside. He looked up at the sky, wide, indifferent, endless. Justice, he knew now, was never a destination. It was a direction, and he was still walking.